Hello and welcome to Sensitive Changemakers, the podcast where we celebrate the power of sensitivity and introversion in leadership, entrepreneurship, and beyond. I'm Kate Carter, your host, a certified professional coach, a fellow HSP and introvert who is passionate about helping you embrace your unique gifts and lead with authenticity. I hope this episode finds you well. I am excited to delve into this week's topic, and I really did want to share some of the quote mistakes that I have made over the last probably 6 to 7 years, which have actually helped move me forward. I am very much a believer of kind of failing forward and using mistakes and so-called failures to help move you in the direction that you want to go in. And I'm also very much a doer in all of the ways. So that means that I like doing things, I like taking action, but also I need to trial things, test things out to see if they work or not. I can't just think it through. I actually do need to try things out. I really kind of wanted to paint the picture. I wanted this to normalize the kind of messy journey that it often can be when you are trying something new, whether that be entrepreneurship, whether that be something you're doing in your own time, whether that's something you're trying to implement in a business that you're working for. Whenever you're trying to do something new, it can be really, really uncomfortable. It can often look like a mess. And there's often a lot of doubt and uncertainty, but it doesn't mean that because those things are there, that what you're working towards isn't worth it. And that's kind of what I want to come at the angle from here. When I first started, so my big thing that I was trying to implement was my business. And I had this idea back in 2017. I remember still to this day driving home from work. My daughter, I'd had my son in 2010, I'd had my daughter in 2015. And I reckon this was around 2016, 2017. It wasn't long after my daughter because she was kind of the catalyst to everything. And that isn't to give her more importance than my son. It was just there was a lot more health risks around her pregnancy, a lot more fear around whether she was okay and the impact that that had on me and the guilt and the sense of failing as a mum. And all of that came after having Sophie. And that really did kickstart a lot of things for me. But I do remember driving home from work one day and just being filled with this excitement, this new possibility feeling that was in my body that things were going to shift, things were going to start changing. And to be honest, I think back then I thought it was going to be instantaneous. Like I had this feeling something big was going to come and this huge change was going to happen straight away. And of course, it didn't happen like that. It was a lot slower for me. I am glad that it was a lot slower, but at the time, it didn't feel that great in the moment. But yeah, it started off with this feeling of just knowing that something was coming, that something was changing. And that was kind of the creative start, if you like, of my business. Thinking outside the box, thinking differently, starting to look at training courses and things like that to support me in knowing more about what I could do to help people, what that looked like. Like I had no idea. This wasn't somebody coming at it from an angle of I know how business works. I was an educator. That's all the life I knew. I had worked in businesses before I'd started my teacher training, but for the bulk of my adult life, education is what I knew, and it just isn't the same as a business world. And so I had no real clue on how to start, what to do, how to create anything new. And so it was a lot of watching, it was a lot of absorbing things, it was a lot of reading, it was a lot of research. And there was an angle of, okay, well, what am I going to give? What am I going to be able to do here? And obviously, I knew I wanted to support people with mindset because that was the big journey that I'd been through and I was very excited about. So it was looking for training courses that were going to provide me with the experience and the knowledge to be able to do that. But really, just the message I want to say here or bring to you here is I didn't really have a clue what I was doing, but I had this fundamental belief that I would figure it out. And I think even though I can be quite hard on myself, and I think we all can. I've spoken to so many clients over the last sort of 5, 6 years, and I know that is one of the patterns that I see is that we can be incredibly hard on ourselves. And I think if you'd asked me a couple of years ago, I don't think I would have even seen that that belief was there, but it has been. And I wouldn't have continued to go through the difficult times if I didn't have that fundamental belief that I would figure it out. So when I talk about the difference between confidence and self-trust, we don't need confidence when we start something new. For example, starting a business. Confidence, I truly believe, comes with practice. The more we show up, the easier it feels. Like we learn something new, we get used to it, becomes a habit, all of those things that actually create that confidence. But self-belief is something you can have from the start. And if you don't have that unshakable self-belief, which I don't believe I did have, you can have the belief that you will figure it out. And I think that's a great starting place. So I know that I had that. But what I didn't know, that I kind of am grateful for, but it was very frustrating, was that I didn't know that I wasn't always going to get it right. But even though it felt incredibly frustrating at the time, and there were times when I wanted to scream into a pillow, when I would cry to my husband, going, I don't know what I'm doing wrong here. Why isn't this working? Looking back, all of the different things, all of the different mistakes, all the different failures that other people would probably see them as, those are actually the things that have helped me to move forward. So this is going to be a real kind of transparent, vulnerable episode on all of the different things that I know a lot of people will look at and go, why did she do that? Why did she do that? But I'm hoping that you can see the bigger picture here. When you look at the fact that I didn't know what I was doing, I had a fundamental belief that I would figure it out. And I do have to do things to trial things out. And I think a lot of people do, if we're completely honest. And you can call this messy action. I've written a post about this. I know a lot of my sensitives and my introverts don't necessarily like the word messy, and that's okay. I'm very much with you on that one. It doesn't feel good. It feels like we're not really thinking about things beforehand, and that's not the case. There was a lot of thinking that went into every single thing that I've done in my business, even if it did on the surface look like a mistake or a failure. But I do believe that failing forward, that's probably a term that I like better rather than messy action. Failing forward has really supported me in my journey. So let's start off. The first mistake, and some of these you won't probably see as mistakes, some of them you will, some of them people have probably told you that they're not the right thing to do, but I did them anyway. So just really do take what you can from this. So the first thing, and I've tried to do this in chronological order, I only had one offer at the start. I didn't think about a product suite. I didn't think about having different price points. I just had one offer, which was just to work with me one to one. That was it. Now, I know there are a lot of different ways that this has been talked about. Some people say you've got to have a product suite, you've got to have different price ranges. And then other people saying just have one. My personal take on it, if I look at it through the lens of being highly sensitive and introverted and just being at the start of something, it was really important for me to do one thing and figure that out. So that is what I did. And I know that some people frown at that, but I really do feel that that really supported me because it enabled me to speak to people on a much, much deeper level because I was working one to one. I think one of the biggest things I learned was that, yes, I can have a framework, but every single person I work with is different. And this is kind of what frustrates me sometimes with the marketing online, with anything to do with business. Yes, there are things that are going to support us, but to say that every single person can go through a framework, like a specific to-do way, and get the same results at the end, just doesn't make any sense to me. Because every single person is different. Every single person, I've worked with over 150 clients over the last 5, 6 years. And some of those people have just had one session, some people have had 6 sessions, some people have had months of sessions, some people have been with me for a very long time. But whatever those clients have brought to those sessions is so very different. Yes, there are underlying patterns, but the way that those patterns reveal themselves in that individual's life is very different. And so they all need different support. And now that I've been doing this for a long time, I can see that, some sessions that I've had have been purely mindset, purely on the energy side of things. Some have been purely strategy with a little bit of mindset sprinkled in. And so having that time to work with people one to one on that deeper level really supported me in seeing this. I think one of the biggest lessons I learned from this was knowing that I didn't have to go into every single session knowing all of the answers. That actually the best thing that I could do for my clients was to be completely and utterly present, to really listen to them. And listening is such an important skill. We all think we can do it, but so many of us don't do it very well. And it was definitely a skill I needed to practice. So there's a difference between listening to respond and listening to understand. And the skill that I really worked on was listening to understand. And so having that one offer, having just one client at a time really supported me with that, even though at the time it was quite frustrating because it felt like it was moving very slowly. The next mistake, in inverted commas, that I made was doing live videos when I really didn't feel ready or comfortable. And again, this one's a little bit of a, yeah, but is that really a mistake? It's one of the ones that sits under that failing forward or messy action, whatever you like to call it. This one definitely sits within that one. I remember to this day doing a live video and I wasn't in a great place at that time, if I'm completely honest. So I didn't come at it from a neutral perspective. There was a lot of emotion behind the scenes. I think this was about 2019. I think 2018, 2019, this was. The years before 2020, I wasn't making any money. And my aim was to support teachers. So this was in a teacher Facebook group that I'd created. And there was a lot going on for me. I was still working full time at that point in teaching. And I wasn't happy at all. And I know that the way that I came across on this video was quite frustrating. And I just got this one lady who was very mean and quite rude because of the way that I turned up on video. And I could have used that as an example that I wasn't good enough, that I shouldn't be doing this. And yes, I went away and got really frustrated. After the emotion had settled down, I was able then to look at this neutrally and think, okay, what am I going to do with this? What am I going to make this mean? Am I going to make this mean that I can't do this? Or I'm going to make it mean that actually there's something I can learn from this? And again, I took the second one, and it sounds like I'm very, oh, isn't she very good? She always looks at the bright side and she always move forward. No, that's not true. There was a lot of frustration. There was a lot of moaning. There was a lot of why me. There was a lot of kind of victim mentality in that as well before I actually got to the stage where I was like, okay, I could make this mean one of two things here. And I decided that I was just going to get better at doing live videos. And that's really supported me because I now love live videos. I really do. Even though I'm an introvert, even though I'm highly sensitive, I do love doing live videos and I do them every week in my Facebook group. The next thing that is seen as a huge mistake, but actually helped me, was charging less than what the going rate was for coaching. Now, my biggest mistake, and I do think this was one of the mistakes. I still learned from it, so I don't see it as a bad thing. One of my first paying clients, in fact, the first paying client in 2020, I didn't have a set price. I actually said the words to her, "What would you like to pay?" And that is how I started. Now, over the years, this has been something, money mindset. And yes, I realized that it's not always about the money, it's what the money represents for a lot of us. And that's very true for me. Money represents a lot of trauma, money represents a lot of arguments and high emotions and confrontation. And it's been a journey to accept that and to look at money differently and to accept it as being different. And the way that I worked it had to be anything to do with money, had to be a logical decision. I couldn't let it be an emotional one. And what I mean by that is there's so many people out there who tell you to figure out a price that makes you feel a bit stretchy and, charge what you're worth, etc. And I just couldn't do that. So I went from the mistake that I originally made of saying, what would you like to pay? That was based on an emotional decision. My emotional decision based on the trauma and little t trauma, not big T trauma, little t trauma around the baggage that I was bringing to those conversations around what money meant for me. And then realizing very quickly that I couldn't run a business like that. So actually sitting back and then looking at things logically and thinking, right, okay, I need X amount of money each month. I would like to work with X amount of clients each month. If I do the math, what does that equal that I have to charge as a minimum? And that's what I used as a starting point. So I tried to get to a real neutral place and based it on logic. And that supported me. So making that mistake from a very emotional perspective actually supported me in moving forward into making it a more logical equation, like bringing the math in, just making the math work so that actually I could figure it out. And that was the starting point. And I say it's still a journey because the journey that I went on after that was okay, but actually, what the calculation that I'd made was a best case scenario. What if I don't have that many clients each month? Then what does that mean? And so, what I've come to the realization is that I actually have had to charge more than probably what I envisaged that I would need to charge because I had to account for the unseeable things that happen in a business that you wouldn't experience in a 9 to 5. So obviously you've got your outgoings. You've got to take into tax. You know, when you earn so much money, you've got to take into consideration VAT, national insurance, things like that for the UK anyway. And so it was very much the maths equation that I originally worked out, which I still love. I still am so proud of myself, especially with the baggage that I was bringing to the business around money, that I was able to look at things logically and go, okay, let's work out what I need here. Working out actually, I need more than I realized to cover myself over these different things. And then if we put into things like savings, pensions, things like that, it's more money than I realized that I needed each month. It wasn't just a case of covering the basics. And so I've gradually increased over time, and I'm just going through to be again completely transparent, I'm just going through increasing my prices again, not ridiculously. And I know that I am not the most expensive coach out there. And I hope to be able to stay that way because I never ever wanted to be the most expensive coach ever. It wasn't an aspiration of mine. And for me, helping people and supporting people wherever they're at was always the driving force for me. Money, yes, is important. Let's be honest, it is. We have to pay bills. But it was always the secondary thing that I was thinking of. It's now got to the stage where I'm like, yes, absolutely, making an impact and supporting people, but I've also got to look after my future, which was an equation I hadn't have thought about before. So that's kind of where I'm at now, is looking towards the future, making sure that I've got some savings for when I get older. Complete transparency with that one, but charging less than others really supported me and forcing me to look at the baggage that I was bringing and also bringing a neutrality to that thinking, to those decisions around charging. So we're on to mistake 4. I hope you're with me so far. The next one is pivoting. I have pivoted, I think, a number of times, not in a huge, huge, groundbreaking way. Still very much a coach, always have been, but I have pivoted. So, as I said, in 2017, 2018, before I even started earning money, the intention was to support teachers with mindset and work overload. And I didn't like it. I've got to be honest. So I then pivoted into just supporting people with anxiety and mindset. That shifted into supporting entrepreneurs, which supported in bringing more strategy. And then in 2022, I found the online space at that point, the end of 2022, 2023, just not even overwhelming. There's a line in Friends where Phoebe talks about gravity and she talks about it and she said, it's not so much, and I'm going to mess up this quote now, but she says something to the degree of, it's not so much that I feel I've been pulled down so much as I feel like I'm being pushed. And that's the kind of feeling that I felt when I was social media. Like I was being pushed in so many different ways. And I've spoken to quite a lot of clients about this. I think if we're highly sensitive and introverted, we do take on a lot of what is going on around the world or around us. We take it on and we don't even realize we're doing it. And so I was in the online space a lot. I was consuming a lot. And I realized it was impacting the way that I was thinking and behaving and taking action without me being consciously aware. And I was starting to sound like other people, and it wasn't intentional, and I hated it. And so I really pulled back from social media. I tried in-person events, which didn't succeed the way that I wanted to. And again, by doing that, made me realize how much I love being online. And something's happened recently this year that again has really cemented the fact that online for me is the way forward. I will do the odd retreat, I will do the odd in-person thing, but actually seeing my clients, I much prefer being online. And so again, just going through that and taking the action, trying it out really brought that clarity to me. The next thing is a little bit sort of linked with the pivoting is I did try courses. I've created a couple of courses. I don't think anybody's seen them ever. Um, I've done masterminds, I've done group coaching. Masterminds and group coaching, there was an element of success there. I did have people sign up, but it wasn't to the degree that I was expecting. And actually, when I looked at why I was doing that, and this is why I'm going to put this one under there, when I looked at why I was doing that, again, it was what I was talking about before. It felt like that's what I was being told to do. I was going, yeah, I'll do a mastermind. Yeah, I'll do group coaching. And actually, when I look at it, the intention behind it wasn't because of my values and my priorities, which is to make an impact to support as many people as I can. It was coming from a lack. It was coming from a frustration. Oh my God, I haven't got as much money as the stability isn't there. People are telling me that I need to have this reoccurring revenue. I'm panicking, I'm panicking. So what can I do here? Okay, I'll try masterminds, I'll do some courses, I'll do some group coaching. The intention behind those kind of so-called mistakes was because there was an element of me panicking, an element of me thinking that I was somehow missing something, that I was lacking something. And again, taking that action and doing those things, I'm really grateful for. I know how to create a mastermind and know how to create group coaching. I know how to do a course and how to get it set up. But actually, the bigger lesson that it supported me with actually at the moment, I love one-to-one. I love one-to-one. That will always be the way that people can work with me. And yes, I will have other offers, I'm sure. I'm thinking of something at the moment that's a lot low cost to help people who are just starting out, but it will always lead to that one-to-one coaching. I can't imagine that changing. Never say never, but I can't imagine that changing. So doing those different things really supported me in first of all seeing what I really wanted to do, like gaining clarity around that, but also just enabling me to see how I was making decisions. What was the best way of me making decisions? It was never going to be making decisions based on panic, based on fear, based on pressure or frustration. The best decisions that I made were going to be from what's important for me? How do I want to stand in my business? What do I want to stand for? And using that as the lens to see things through. And this is a question that I ask, I think practically every client I work with is, first of all, I ask them, how do they want to be coached? And second of all, I always ask, what are your values? How do you see yourself? How do you want to stand in your business? What do you want to stand for in your business? Because I think those things are really important. We can then use those as lenses to see everything through. So that's really what I wanted to cover here. I hope this has given a glimpse into a real business and how things have worked over the years. And I would like to say, even though that I've been doing this for nearly 6 years, there is so much still for me to learn. This is still very much a journey that I'm in. I'm always tweaking. I'm always looking at ways that I can improve and be flexible with, especially with social media and things like that. So, full permission to do it your way, full permission to take imperfect action, fail forward, take messy action, whatever the terminology that really supports you. I hope this has been really useful. I will be back next week with another episode, and I'm sending you so much love, guys. Bye. Thank you so much for listening to this week's episode. If you have any takeaways or any questions, please do reach out to me either through Instagram, LinkedIn or Facebook at Kate Carter Coaching, or you can email me at kate@katecarter.co.uk. I always love to hear your feedback and the things that you have taken from the podcast. If you know of any other highly sensitive people, then please do share this so that I can reach more and support more highly sensitive people to embrace their strengths and gifts. As a thank you, I will pick a winner every month for a free 15-minute coaching session with me. Thank you so much.